I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at GoDebby, here with Andrew Droz, Palermo and Gregory Middleton, cinematographers on Moon Knight. Guys, production on this series finished some time ago, but I just want you to go back in time and tell me what were your highlights from the experience of shooting this series, which is just so unbelievably well made. Greg, what about you first?
Well, I think one of the big highlights was trying to just decide how we're going to make everything and what was going to be massive sets, what was going to be location. I mean, we shot in Jordan. Every script was like a giant travelogue of all over everything, and there were no easy scenes. Every scene either had a complex element of some kind into it. So, I mean, the first highlight was just being totally, dwarfed by the challenge and then trying to figure it out. And that would go dovetail into me the most exciting thing for me probably in the end was I was doing episode 5 and trying to figure out the twinning aspect and helping Oscar craft this performance with himself, which was kind of hopefully very seamless in a weird sort of inside the head emotion journey all that throughout the asylum and his life. So that would be that other highlight, I think.
What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, I would just highlight that as well as watching Oscar craft those performances was really incredible. And I think I didn't even appreciate how much he was doing until I saw the finished pieces, so I was so impressed with his work. And, that stands out to me as one of the things that I just loved about it. But of course, getting to go to Jordan, shooting in Wadi Rum, the famed desert that Lawrence of Arabia was shot in. What an incredible gift we were given to go there.
I know, it's amazing. So you both shot parts of the series. Greg, you did 4 episodes. Andrew, you did 2. Is the reason really just because logistically one DP just can't do it all, or was there another reason why you had to split it up in that way? Whoever wants to tell me.
Who wants to take that one?
Go for it.
I think. In the end, I think the one thing, Marvel had learned on another series that one director doing 6 episodes was a bit much given the scale of the shows, and it's really about the amount of preparation required because the scripts are so dense and there's so much traveling and scouting. They just became too much in a couple of shows, and they figured that would be too much, and I think that's why they decided to split it off and let Mohammed take the bulk of the work, and then hire another director team in this case to do the others. It also fit, who brought amazing stuff to the table, and then it's better to keep us together as teams because we spent all our time prepping together, which explains why there's 2 of us.
Right.
Yeah, and just even keeping up with the script changes too. I'll just echo that too. I mean, my God, like we'd be rigging a set, and then I'd get I'd talk to Aaron and Justin, and they say, "Oh, that set's gone. Actually, that's not happening anymore." Oh, well, that's good to know. Like, just staying up to the changes is really challenging in this world. And I had my hands full with my 2 episodes. I can't even don't even know what Greg must have. Lack of sleep certainly was an issue for Greg.
Especially towards the end.
Right. I'm amazed that actually happens because there's so much prep involved. Anyone who's even got the slightest idea about what DPs have to get to do, and for them to just like pull the rug from underneath you at the last second, that sounds horrifying. But it is what it is, right? You just roll with it.
You just jump over the rug because it was a constant thing.
But
exactly. It is part of sort of, I think, the creative process for Marvel and how they engage both Mohammed and Justin and Aaron as far as crafting it. Like things, I think the assembled behind the scenes documentary just came out, I think, yesterday. Yes. And have a look at that. And it'll hint at a few of the changes, like characters developing and changing origins, May's character getting powers. But this would mean like entire locations or sets would go away or be combined or been going like at the last minute, like we'd be planning them. And as I said, literally, Andrew and I had been preparing sets to be like, that's been omitted, right? And it'd be on the weekend. Like, okay, we're not shooting here anymore. And because it's when you do that kind of work while you're in production, even though you're making the show better, it does have an immediate impact on your preparation because you're in the middle of it then, which is more challenging than when not. But it did help craft for a much tighter show, and it did it doesn't seem to show. People seem to really feel it's tight, and everything was done with purpose, which is
it only improved. It only improved, and all those changes I was generally almost always thankful for. Yeah, as hard as it was to react and stay on our toes, it was like, oh, it's. You're sometimes protective of those things. You're like, oh man, we had such great ideas there, but then you realize later that it was the right choice. It's just you kind of have to let go.
And there there were scenes we shot completely too that were cut out later and
Of
adjusted,
course.
and afterwards. So
Yeah, you're just trusting that they know what they're doing, and of course they do, and that's just all about being agile with production, particularly during COVID and all the other things. You're on all these disparate locations. It sounds exhausting just saying it out loud. Now you've both got some really amazing grounding in genre. Obviously, Greg, you've got 3 Emmy nominations, 2 for Game of Thrones of all things, and then you won for Watchmen for that amazing episode, This Extraordinary Being, which I think I've seen like 10 times. Stunning work.
oh, cheers, thank you very much.
Emmy winner, of course. And then Andrew, you won the National Society of Film Critics earlier this year for The Green Knight, which I was saying offline should have won the Oscar because it was just breathtaking. So you both
should have got a nomination. This was the year too, like based on the other films. I was really cheering.
Really, I was predicting
Thanks,
it. I had it in there, and then it didn't happen. I thought, okay, it's probably because the voters weren't so familiar with the film. If they were, you probably would have maybe even beaten Greg Fraser from June. Anyway, that's a whole other interview. So the thing is that my point is you've got a great grounding in genre. Then you get signed on to do an MCU Marvel spectacular. Did you both personally and professionally appreciate what it would mean to your career and how difficult it would be and just the gravity of what you're getting yourself into? Andrew, what about you first?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knew it was going to be big in scale, and that was exciting to me. I was really eager to do something on a bigger canvas and have more time and more equipment. But then when I started seeing some of the stages and also just seeing the stuff Greg was up to, I was always like, wow, this is bigger than I've done, bigger than my mind typically goes to. I think much scrappier. But now having done this show, now I realize the sets may look huge or even the lighting plans may look huge, but really it's just to accommodate the changes, as we mentioned. Like, I think Greg was always preparing himself for any eventuality. So, there may only be a couple lights on, but there's a lot more up there ready just in case something's to change. And that's certainly the one thing about the scale of it. And the other thing too is just now, after the show, seeing the marketing push was, really exciting for me to, Super Bowl spots and all these various sporting events. And like people who've never seen any of my work, family members who just won't ever go to an art theater to see the things I've seen, are all excited about Moon Knight. And that's really fun for me.
Yeah, that's cool. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because Andrew mentioned a good point about that. Is I learned a few of those things about the scale thing on those other shows just because they were also cable and being more prepared and coming from the small art house cinema where I started. It's like, yeah, you put the one light, you only have the 2 lights, so you put them in the right place and everything else. And but you know what I mean. Yeah. You do sort of try and be economical, right? The sort of Sven Nykvist kind of Almendra's kind of school. But then when you're doing something with this and these bigger sets, like doing some of the big throne room things on Thrones, it's like I got to prepare for not just my scene, but scenes other people are doing. And then suddenly maybe the mood wants to shift. Maybe the blocking is going to shift. They're not going to be where you're told they're going to be. And you need to be able to prepare, because when you're doing that on the day, I don't have time to rig a bunch more things. So you sort of try and plan ahead, which becomes a great brain exercise in imagining other looks for the set. Like, Andrew and I have very similar tastes, but also we have very different experiences. So it's also super exciting working with other DPs, right? Like I've done that a few times now, but it's great watching how he'll solve a problem or his taste in certain ways and what I would do. And because we have to end up trying to trade rigs, we're doing a set where he's doing something with what I've got left over or the opposite. And it's, that part of it, working with other DPs is it's a real gift to it. You don't get to do that very often.
Yeah, and to see how you work versus how I work there's so many ways to come at any problem, as you're mentioning, and we so rarely get to spend time on anyone else's sets. It's always on our set and the way we work. So that was really fun for me.
Yeah, that's a huge gift. You'll learn so much from this experience that you can take into your next projects. Not only because you have this as a credit that other studios and whatever will see it and think, yeah, this guy can deliver, but also you've taken on some skill. Let's deep dive into some of the episodes, particularly the 2 episodes submitted for Emmy consideration. So Greg, you submitted episode 5, The Asylum. You also did the pilot, the season finale, and episode 3 in Modern Day Cairo, but you picked 5, The Asylum, and I'm really glad you did. That's a change of pace to some extent. There's the stuff with Toweret, obviously. There's we experience Spectre's painful childhood memories. It's very emotional. So talk me through the challenges and why you decided that was the episode that best exemplified your work on the show.
Well, I think because for me, cinematography is not just sort of lighting; it's also the combination of camera and like point of like storytelling point of view, which I find like one of the most interesting things about the work in my position on a project. And that one exemplified that biggest challenge for that, to go with this journey, both Stephen and Mark, both separately. The point of view shifts between the episodes. You go back in time with him as Stephen is uncovering what he doesn't know, and Mark is reluctantly, exploring the things he's been trying to hide from Stephen and from himself. And to make it a journey which was both clear where you're going and confusing. You wanted to be disorienting in the same way it would be for the characters, but you still have to be able to follow the story. And I found that challenge really unique. And also, I love the idea of trying to make it a seamless sort of journey, like a dreams. In some way, like the dreamscape in that Watchmen episode was similar. It was sort of a dreamscape where things are going in and out of consciousness, where you don't quite know how you arrive somewhere else, and you're linked by your experience emotionally between two places, not just by their physical proximity or the way they look. And I just uncovering the way to do that was really exciting. And then the second thing is doing all this with Oscar playing both roles and trying to accommodate and figure out with him, like which character we'll start with, which character will drive the blocking, and how we want to be with the point of view of that character, and work it out, because we have to work it out in the time as well. We can't, we shoot him separately. We don't change him back and forth for every shot. He'll usually stay in one character longer, or start with one character, do one change. And so just working that out logistically and also working out the story-wise was really exciting. And I'm proud of the fact that even like I watched the episode, recently, and I have a hard time remembering that he's the same person, and I was there during all the scenes, and I'm watching his incredible characterization, as Andrew was mentioning earlier. And I think we managed to make it fairly seamless. People stop thinking that he's actually one actor. And if we could do that, then we've immersed the audience fully into the emotional experience of the story. So that was the target was that, and I think we've managed to hit it. And to me, that's why I submit the episode.
Oscar Isaac has done so much impressive work over the last few years. This is his best work yet. And I hope people don't, have a bias against genre work, a superhero show, because this is stunning work that he's able to achieve. And the Asylum episode, of course, is where he really hits the ball out of the park. I totally agree with that. Andrew, on the other hand, you submitted episode 4, which is the Tomb episode, which I really loved, because there is so much light and shade there. There's jump scares. There's the great reveal with Alexander the Great. There's those zombie priests. It's very action-packed, but I think there's also some really great moments where I found, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, the camera, there's a lot of stuff where the camera lingers on certain glimpses or certain scenes that I found really, 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 really effective. Talk me through what you loved about that episode and why you wanted to submit it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I really like the genre hopping that it does. I like the kind of tomb exploration. We get to do some sand desert exploration, but then that it also kind of all inverts and turns in on itself. And, we get to kick off what, Greg then takes further with the Asylum, and that sort of in between space, including all of the, movie within the movie. I think, and all of those things for me are a real feast as a cinematographer, to develop a lot of those looks and to think about those things and to design how we move from one space to the next. I get excited about the stitching between those sequences, and when Oscar is sort of going under the water, which takes us to the flashlight of the Tomb Busters show, and the way we come out of Tomb Busters from the TV and the Asylum. That stuff's really fun, and obviously a feast for a cinematographer. But again, it comes down to all of that stuff working because of Oscar. And I think you're totally right. His work and it's just incredible, and we're so fortunate to have an actor of his caliber in the show, because it all would just fall apart without him. And you really feel for him as a character. And the other thing I'll just add that I think is really amazing about Greg's work in episode 5 is that there's so many technical considerations when you're shooting the same actor as two people, and those technical considerations are compounded when the camera moves, and how are you going to achieve duplicating him in a space, and thinking about each of those things, but also staying open to Oscar's needs as an actor. To me, that's a real feat for a cinematographer. And I think, when I see that episode, I have a hard time picking apart when there's a double, or when it's, some sort of techno dolly or thing which can repeat a move so that he can alternate positions. And it's all of that's done so fluidly and so seamlessly that I think that's a real testament to Greg's work in that episode.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
Yeah,
your first one, your first second dolly shot in 4 though was the first one that set it up, right, when he comes out of the coffin, because it's like the audience just goes what, and then they kind of buy it from that moment on, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you guys did other episodes too, and they're all so phenomenal. Like Andrew, episode 2, Summon the Suit, like let's just realize that sequence where he's 2 people and he's fighting these jackals, and you can't see them sometimes and you can see them sometimes. The scenes with Harrow, like, it blew my mind. That was only episode 2. So I mean, you could have even chosen that if you wanted to. Like, what was the highlight for that? Was that difficult to get right? Because it looks incredible.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that fight scene was really tough, and that was a huge collaboration with the stunt team. You know, they really brought a lot of cool ideas to that fight. Aaron and Justin really were very strong about their perspective of that fight, and that it would always be best when we could be out wide and we could see them fighting an invisible force. You know, and they were very particular about that. And all the meetings with the stunt team, you know, they just kept pushing us to try to put as many shots into one shot as possible, and that it would be much more powerful, the absence of this jackal in the fight. And you know, that fight was shot over many nights. And also I have to give hats off to the second unit DP Darren, who did wonderful work on the rooftops chase. I didn't shoot a single frame of that stuff, and he did absolutely beautiful work. And you know, really like we had a vision for the scene, and we gave him, you know, some thoughts, but that was almost nothing. He really took it so much further, and I'm so glad and thankful for the work that he and the second unit director did on that episode.
Yeah, it is really strong work. Greg, of course, you did the pilot, which a lot of that is set in the museum. A lot of it includes world building, setting the scene for us in Stephen's apartment. And then, of course, you did episode 3, modern day Cairo, with all the fight scenes, the pyramids. And then you do the finale, which is so VFX heavy. And so it really begs the question, what's the challenge of working on a very VFX heavy episode where you do have to collaborate very closely with the team to ensure that everything is completely seamless in camera, and of course for scale out camera? Talk me through it.
Well, I think it's a great question. Also, with just the way the craft has changed and over time, like, you know, preparation used to be reading the script, talking about things, jotting ideas, scouting locations, looking at photographs together. And now when you deal with sequences where you've got a lot of virtual characters or virtual environments, the design of those environments is the same as a location scout, which means that when they're designed as a cinematographer, you want to be involved in that. And also it's a great opportunity to use those tools to help express what I think the scene should feel like and be like what should the location look like, what should the time of day be, things like that. So it does hopefully put you involved much earlier as possible. And when you're designing, like, you know, when we go to Wadi Rum, we're going to find the most amazing places that our directors scouted for us, and that's great. But when you're, let's say, on a rooftop or on the hill of a thing and the sky's going to go backwards in 3, or we're in parts of, you know, we're in a place where there's going to be no background that's done later, we can sort of, you know, craft what I would like the scene to look like, and then help pitch ideas for the background to VFX. And that helps one use all those tools to help tell the story the way we do it in a real location. And the second part is when you add unreal elements to a scene, like Khonshu, for example, or you know, even Ahmet or Tauret, who we both shot as. You know, we have an actor on set in a costume designed to be as much like the real costume as possible, and we would have a maquette head to light, like for the either Tauret's head or Khonshu's head, to use as a lighting reference. And it's very important in that. And I learned this before, having done a few other virtual characters, is you basically have one, it allows them to block the scene with the actors together, so they can perform the scene like actors, so it doesn't look like an animated character, you know, and them looking at eyeline. They get to perform the scene and discuss what the scene would feel like and how they would move naturally. And then the second part is I have to light as if, even though the character's not there when we film it, often we do a pass with them and then they film an empty eyeline. I need to light the actor and the costume piece or the maquette head as if it's really there, because that allows us to cement the lighting into a reference that I've created for this character, and then I can light them like any other character in the scene, and I'm not leaving it up to the CG people to create a whole backlight or something I expect them to do. One, they don't have the time to do that properly, and two, they're not on the set often, the people doing that work, and they have a reference and some photographs. But if I can provide something that really looks like, oh, I see how they should look in the same way. And I think the Khonshu scenes that both Andrew and I did, like the scene on in the open air theater at the end, right, where we had get a great backlight there, Andrew, and I've got stuff in the Conchu Temple where you can really craft how you want this head to look, and you can give him personality, and you need to do that as a cinematographer on the non-existent head for it to actually work on the virtual head. And it's really a bit of a brain tease, but it really makes a huge difference. And I know Sean was very, very thankful for all the work we did lighting the costumes those ways and trying to treat them like real people, because it made their work a lot better.
I don't know about you, Greg, but sometimes I have an idea of, like, at least when Conchu would show up, I have an idea about where he's going to be. Yeah. But, he's 9 feet tall. I'm not used to framing someone 9 feet tall, nor am I used to framing someone with a beak as big as his. So I would already have the frame ready, and then and then I would find myself scooting way back, like, oh, I'm actually way too close. I can't. Yeah. So I need to have something like that. And I've learned that lesson time and time again, that my imagination of a virtual character is never accurate. I need something that's the physical size. It just is. It's just essential.
I don't think the audience fully appreciates how much the DP has to do to get that right. Of course, Sean Faden, he's a legend. He knows exactly how to make visual effects look seamless, but you've got to do the prep work on set first. And I hope people realize that, especially for Conchu, with a head that big. They're not acting with a tennis ball, like they're actually acting with something scaled.
Well, there's a tennis ball and a stick above the actor at the correct height, but the actor's still there to act. So they've got someone saying the lines, but the eye line is at least correct. But I mean, a good example of this scene is something that actually Andrew contributed a shot to as well, which in 6, after they come out of the tomb, where Moon Knight comes back to life, and he comes back and then he sees Conchu on top of this hill, because that was a pitch that I made about, let's do this scene at sunset so the sun can shift, we can go into night, like deciding when in the story we should go to night. I figured that was the perfect time. Then he could fly to Cairo at dusk, finish the scene at night there. Otherwise, he's night in the desert, coming out of the night, everything's the same. And also, Conchu's the god of the night sky. We could have a transition, but of course, we shot the whole scene on the same sandy hill set with a few extra rocks that we used for the Million Night Sky scene in episode 3. But we needed a shot of a hill and the sun behind it. So Andrew actually shot that shot of the sun going down with a little Conchu silhouette, he was not there, while still in Jordan. So we talked about it, we drew it out, and you actually did that plate right for that part, and then the rest of it was done on a set, all against blue, with me imitating a bright sunlight slowly going down and the shadow moving up the hill towards them, with them. So it's like a combination of things with a one location shot. But it all came from a concept of deciding, what should this look like? If we could, I know we were going to build all the backgrounds for most of my coverage. We'll get one real shot in our real place. It'll anchor to the real thing we have, which will make it more believable. And you sort of like all those things together. Yeah, I give you a great reference.
Yeah.
And it was very valuable. And it was kind of a cool thing,
What was
the sun go down.
Greg, while I'm here, I have a question too, which is, what was your hardest VFX or set challenge, do you feel like? When you look back for me, it was like the reflections. They always were kind of you could get into a maze of thought about how to do those or how to achieve them, or where you have to shift them in places. But was there one particularly that was tough for you? Not just reflections, but any of the sets?
I think the hardest one lighting wise was creating this feeling of the sky going by at the end of episode 3, because that was something that was very important to try to have the lighting, the track. To actually make the shadows move across an area big enough to have May and either Stephen or Mark in the various, before he changes, and also Conchu, and to have the shadows pass over them enough to give the feeling of something going from horizon to horizon, from the design of the effects of the sky moving, and creating a giant arc. That we had to build that whole rig custom and find lights we could get in Budapest that were bright enough, create the pattern, and then have to sort of imitate program a lighting effect that would look kind of like what the sky is. We originally discussed the idea of, if it was a smaller scale, let's say something as big as us on our screens now, you might be able to use like a video wall and project the same animation and get some effect on somebody. But when it was coming to the size of that set, knowing we had to use cranes and be very wide, none of that stuff would be bright enough. So we had to sort of create an imitation of what that would look like with the custom lighting program thing of different bars or twinkly effects and different colors, and pulling the effects out, and then they use those things, use those exact colors in their animation, so that would sort of match. But that physical rig and programming it and having something with they could, the scene progresses in terms of the speed of the sky, and then it has to go by dialogue. That was a massive nightmare.
It was a beautiful turned out very well. It turned out great. I mean, even just seeing it walking in on set, you knew exactly where it was headed. Like, this is already. You could see
the shadows traveling, and then I was like, okay, we got it. But that was very tricky. And that, again, that's one where Sean's like, if they had to do all of the lighting on the people CG as well, which can be done in some ways,
Yeah.
it's when it won't be as good. It won't have a reference. So if I can create a very good reference or a very good feeling of it that they can extend, it marries everything together better. And that's part of the challenge. That's why, even though it was an incredible challenging thing to do, it was really important for the believability of the whole scene and to make all of the animation work really work and to feel. Also, it can be quite beautiful, the feeling of traveling light in the sky whizzing by and time going backwards. It can be quite beautiful if you can really feel it on people.
I mean, it's so central to the narrative of that particular scene, and it has to be done properly, and thankfully it did. Guys, I wish we had more time. We have to cut it there, but thank you so much for your time today. Great work on Moon Knight. I hope we see you on the Emmy red carpet.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much, Robert. Thanks for your interest in our show and on our work.